Spare. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, as we continue our analysis of Harry's autobiography, helping us understand more about him, his mindset, his behaviours, and of course, all set against the backdrop of narcissism. Now for a bit of history. Harry was in South Africa with his father, and he went to a place called KwaZulu-Natal, and this was a place that Harry knew about because he was aware of it being where redcoats had clashed with Zulus. And what he's referring to is the Battle of Rorke's Drift, or the Defence of Rorke's Drift, which was an engagement in the Anglo-Zulu War in 1879. The successful British defence of the mission station of Rorke's Drift, under the command of Lieutenants John Chard of the Royal Engineers and Gonville Bromhead, 24th Regiment of Fut, began when a large contingent of Zulu warriors broke off from their main force during the final hour of the British defeat at the day-long Battle of Isadwana on the 22nd of January 1879, diverting 6 miles to attack Rorke's Drift later that day and continuing into the following day. Just over 150 British and colonial troops defended the station against attacks by 3,000 to 4,000 Zulu warriors. The massive but piecemeal attacks by the Zulu on Rorke's Drift came very close to defeating the much smaller garrison, but were consistently repelled. 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded among the defenders, along with a number of other decorations and honours. The activities of that day were immortalised in the movie Zulu, which many people in Britain know that's invariably shown around Christmas time, and is a fantastic film and was actually Michael Caine's first big screen appearance, and it's a firm favourite of the ultra. Somebody pop that chap there, being one of the memorable lines from it. And of course, probably the best part of the movie is when the Swiss gentleman who's on his crutches with his injured foot comes out of one of the buildings and he shoots a Zulu, and then as he's trying to reload his weapon, another runs at him and he bayonets him, and then the bandage unfolds from his foot and he slips as he's trying then to go and help Chard, who's been knocked semi-unconscious by a Zulu, and he takes them on, loving every minute of it. Type of thing that schoolboys would watch upon when they were younger and think, I'll have a piece of that. It's certainly very interesting, and the individuals that are involved in it. And the following day, when dawn broke, the British saw that all the Zulus were gone, and basically, around 7 a.m, some of the Zulus reappeared, but they didn't attack because they'd been on the move for 6 days and hadn't eaten properly for 2. They got hundreds of wounded, and there were several days' march from any supplies. So the Zulus backed off. So basically, the need for breakfast certainly helped out the Brits on that occasion. Now, Harry has seen the movie, and he relates when he's there. But what was interesting was his experience that he relays, and he explains that they're at a sort of there's a beautiful lodge, and they're sat around a log fire, and there's a world famous historian, David Rattray, who's recreating the battle. And Harry admits for the first time that he's probably going to pay attention to a lecture, which tells you quite a bit about his mindset when it comes to academia. And he listens to Mr. Rattray recounting what happened in the battle, and talks about, as I've just mentioned, how 150 soldiers hold off roughly 4,000. And he talks about the 11 soldiers that were granted the Victoria Cross. Now, what's interesting is that at the time when Harry listened to this tale, which is when he's a teenager, like many of his age, it's one of those things where it's fantastic to listen to, it's very interesting. You're a young boy that is interested in soldiers and fighting, etc. He's seen the movie. And he then explains, though a source of pride for many Britons, Rorke's Drift was the outgrowth of imperialism, colonialism, nationalism, in short, theft. Great Britain was trespassing, invading a sovereign nation and trying to steal it, meaning the precious blood of Britain's finest lads had been wasted that day in the eyes of some among them. Interestingly, for Harry to make mention of that, I very much doubt that he was thinking that at the time. Indeed, if he had such a view, then why did he go into the army? And it seems to me that this is the sort of revisionist gloss that has been placed upon this recollection years later. And those aren't the words of somebody who basically has benefited from that colonialism. And there's no doubt about it that Britain rampaged its way around the world, creating an empire, like Spain did, like France did, like Germany did, like the Italians did, even Belgium. Belgium had an empire. But the point is this. At the time, he wouldn't have made such thoughts, or had such thoughts, and they're not ones really that sit with the type of individual that he is. His own family has benefited from this colonialism. If he feels so strongly about it, why didn't he completely come out of it, reject any financial support associated with his family, reject any property, jewels that's associated with that? If he feels so strongly about that colonialism, why did he not reject it wholesale and say, I renounce all of that, I don't think it's right, it's the proceeds of theft, and therefore what I'm going to do is go and get myself a job and live off the proceeds of that. But of course he didn't, which shows the hypocrisy. And to my mind, he didn't entertain any of these thoughts about it being theft and colonialism, etc. This, very much here, is the hand of Harry's wife, whereby she has told him, oh, Great Britain having an empire, that's imperialism, it's colonialism, it's theft. Your nation was trespassing. Well, as I understand it, also the Zulus were as well. It wasn't their land either. But the point is this. This is the influence of Harry's wife, undoubtedly so. And interestingly, he then later on states that he kind of rejected then the suggestion about it being theft. He seems to suggest that this was coming from the historian that was talking about it all. I suspect that this is more a case of what is being said by Harry's wife and is being added. And Harry has this conflict in a way that he talks about in the book, where he suggests that he rejects such notions at the time. But the point is, he's got it into the book. The suggestion that Britain is this colonial empire, which of course it is. But what was an interesting recollection of being in the place of this battle becomes tainted by this latter revelation, which clearly has been thrust in there because of Harry's wife's insistence. And as I say, if he felt so strongly about it, there's much more he could do by way of action. It harks back a little bit to when Anderson Cooper said to him, why don't you renounce your titles? And he testily responded, well, what difference would that make? It shows that he's infected with the same mindset of his wife, which is, we'll tell all of you how you should live your lives. We'll tell you all about being, hashtag be kind, etc. But when it actually comes to doing these things, we are hypocrites, although we'll always deny it, because we expect you all to do it, but we won't. We'll talk the talk, but we won't walk the walk. He describes the trip in South Africa as one that had been a smash, and he clearly enjoyed it, and also that he bonded further with his father. So it was clear that he very much cherished the occasions when he was able to spend time with his father. But this small section talking about that experience in South Africa and recounting the incident with the Zulus just demonstrate some of the hypocrisy and the looming ghost of Harry's wife in this publication. We move on in the next section where we learn more about the antics at school. Join me there.